Everyone. All right, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
What's that? Yes, because it's recording the audio for me too. It's so lovely to be here in my spiritual home. I got the privilege of growing up here at Mile High Center for Spiritual Living, and now I actually live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I've known this beautiful woman for many, many years. And Julie and I got to grow up here together, and especially in the teen church, which was a really pivotal experience for me. I got to take my first social emotional training class when I was 7 years old, just around the corner at South Lakewood Elementary School. Jefferson County Public Schools recognized something in me, and they said, "We're going to put this child in this class." That was followed by years of meditation. Yes, meditation, that came. But mediation and conflict management, and then leadership training. I helped facilitate the I Am program here at Mile High when I was 15 years old, and I did that for several years with Colleen and her colleague that helped evolve that program. So I have been on this path for a long time. Like a lot of people, I kind of did the checking out thing. I started shoving my spirituality in the closet in my 20s. I didn't want people to know what I was doing internally, and I ended up pretty unhappy in my life. I had an 8-year relationship that was good. We played well together, but it wasn't what I wanted. And when a dear friend actually of Melissa and mine died in 2011, it catalyzed a lot of inner growth for me. Losing him was super, super challenging. It was my first real experience with losing somebody that I loved. And 9 months later, that 8-year relationship ended. And all of a sudden, I started getting back on my spiritual path in big ways. So since then, life has continued to evolve and grow. And I am going to share with you the one thing that has helped change my entire life in radical ways. So I love to think of it like this. Center for Spiritual Living, what's the motto?
You're different. It's different.
Well, yeah, that's the motto of like the church. But what the teachings of science of mind.
So it is.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thinking, change your life with science of mind. Well, changing our thinking is only part of the step. When we change our orientation to how we relate to ourself and our life and step into our creator power, that's where we start to catalyze incredible, incredible things. So we're going to talk a little bit, because I promised you some things. I got my little outline. What did I promise I was going to talk about? So we're going to talk about this one change. And I had put on the outline. How many people got to read the outline of what I was speaking about today? Oh, see, a lot of people don't know what I actually promised. That's fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from here, which I don't typically do, because I want this to be relevant to you. I'm not just going to tell you about what I do. I'm going to give you an experience of what I offer, right? So this one change will save you so much time, energy, attention, focus, and resources, including money. You get to reallocate all of that energy inside of you to creating even more of what you truly desire in your life. Consider for a moment all of the problems, traumas, issues, conflicts, circumstances, etc. you've dealt with in your life or business. And take a moment to breathe into all of that, knowing that you're safe right here in this moment. Now choose one of those significant issues and call it it. Answer these questions. How much has it cost you? Think about it and feel into it, considering all of the ways it has cost you psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Possibly financially, both consciously and unconsciously. indirectly and directly? How much time have you spent trying to fix it, the problem, the circumstance, heal the trauma, whatever it might be? How much energy and attention have you spent dealing with it? How much of your focus have you spent on it? And how many of your dreams or goals have you walked away from or never moved towards because of it? So this one change can revolutionize your life and where you're headed. So we're going to talk about this one change, but we're going to start with a little bit of understanding the structure of stuck. Who's been stuck before? Who would like to share with me a way in which you've been stuck? Leslie.
One of the places I felt stuck at one point in my life was with my business, because I was working into other people's expectations instead of living their purpose.
Beautiful, excellent example. Leslie said one of the places she's been stuck in her business was living into other people's expectations instead of living through her own purpose. That's a great example. So we're going to talk about something we're probably all very familiar with. This big word. What's that word?
Ego.
Who has one of those? How much does this guy get in your way? 2 hands. Right? So this is actually where we start to recognize the structure of stuck. What does this guy do? Toss things out there.
Keep you safe.
Keep us safe. So I like to also call the ego our critter. Because it's quite literally, its job is safety. Now, we live in a pretty safe world, considering we get to live in America. We belong to this incredible spiritual center. We learn to create safety inside of ourselves. We have, for the most part, food, shelter, water, sanitation services. It's a pretty safe world, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, compared to even 100 years ago, how much has our safety gone that direction? Yeah. But this little guy is doing its job. Our critter brain only knows, am I alive or am I not? It is a yes, no, 0, 1 type of question, right? Data, no data. Am I alive or have I died? And that is its job. It's doing a great job. And how much of its job are we allowing it to do in other areas of our life? How much power have we given our critter to control us emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, versus recognizing it has one primary job, and that is survival. Right? I normally run a 2-day workshop, expanding on everything I'm going to give you in 45 minutes. Right? So we're going to kind of leave this at that with one other addition. There's this thing that happens inside of us. And this is a self-perpetuating cycle, okay? So this is the thoughts, feelings, behavior triangle. Anybody heard of that before? Yeah. So our thoughts literally create a chemical reaction inside of us, which leads to our feelings. And our feelings end up directing a huge amount of our behavior unconsciously. And when we become aware of that and start to have a different experience or relationship to what's going on inside of us, it starts to help us shift over here. And this is a self-perpetuating cycle. So we can also kind of think about this as our beliefs and our behaviors, and they feed each other. Our thoughts create a chemical reaction which lead to our behaviors, which reinforce our thoughts, aka our beliefs. How many of you have worked to change your beliefs? And how successful have some of those been? So one of the things I like to say is all levels of consciousness, everything in all of consciousness is always available to us all of the time. We don't necessarily change a belief. We have a new experience. We can have this whole experience, but we have a new experience which helps us evolve our belief. How many of us have heard of the Einstein quote that you can't change a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it? Right? Yeah. So I like to think of it this way. I don't change a belief, I transcend it. I work to create a new experience that helps me evolve or up-level, increase the consciousness of that belief structure. All of these things are helping move us over here. One more thing I want to say about this. In the sky, I call it the shit triangle. This comes from psychology. In psychology, they talk about the drama triangle. Heard of that one? Yeah. So the drama triangle is where somebody plays the victim, somebody plays the persecutor or the judge, and somebody plays the martyr or the savior. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So that's what the ego's doing inside of you. Which position can I get your attention from? How can the ego get you to succumb to its desire to keep you safe? Right? Anybody go insane trying to battle with the voice inside or the voices inside? Had some insanity experiences? God, just like, keep it quiet! All right, so my number one strategy for that is to set down the shit triangle. We turn a two-dimensional shape. When we set it down, we let it become a three-dimensional shape, and we come right up here to what I call the PowerPoint. I like, because I'm talking to a bunch of spiritual people, to call that the position of God, or higher power. What's God's perspective on this? If I breathe and set that down and think about looking at my life or my circumstance, because this is what we're dealing with. When we're over here, our ego is in reaction to circumstances or problems. When I set down that shit triangle and I come to the God perspective, to the PowerPoint inside of me, and look at something neutrally, not from victim, persecutor, savior, I can see things more clearly. I can have an illumined sense of what is. And I can start to make a new choice, which is part of how we get to the other side of this equation. So I'm going to write that. Let's use a brighter color. So, choices. But higher choices. So maybe we'll go like this. Higher choices. Right? When I make a higher choice, I can shift over here. So on this side, we're going to call this the creator you are. I might also call that the God inside of you. We are made in the likeness of our Creator, yet how often are we actualizing that in the way we desire versus reacting and responding to our life? So I'm going to use my relationship with Sebastian as my primary example here. I had had these decent relationships. I wouldn't say that my relationships had been bad by any means, but none of them had been what I wanted. From the time I was very little, the one dream I had was a cosmic, epic, out-of-this-world oneness relationship with a partner. How the hell was I going to create that? I didn't see anybody around me doing that. It's like, don't do that, 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 definitely don't do that. Anybody have a lot of those experiences when it came to relationships? A lot of like seeing what not to do, but who's modeling incredible relationship out there? We don't see a lot of incredible relationship because this is where people live, especially in relationship, because relationship is meant to help us transcend this. Course in Miracles talks about every relationship being here for us, to help evolve us. Every relationship is meant to be our teacher, to be our guide, to be our way into this. So I took 3 years off. So that 8-year relationship ended. I dated for the first time in my life, which is a really interesting experience. I was in my mid-30s, and I'm like, I don't know how to date. There's this online stuff. I don't really like this. And I did a little of that, and I ended up in another relationship that really brought up everything for me. And when that ended, I said, F this. If I can't create the relationship of my dreams, I never will do this again. So I can only take responsibility for what I'm bringing into the relationship. What am I creating? Because that's my reality. It's not the other person, it's me. So I spent 3 years, nearly 3 years, intentionally single to look at my patterns in relationship. So you go, what's the same about all of these, but where are my outliers? And when I started to look at my outliers, I started to get new information. We call that feedback. So another way we move over here is we have to be willing to see what's over here and utilize it as feedback versus getting scared. Right? If we make a mistake, if we have a failure, and if we never take the opportunity to learn from it, we have a harder time getting over here. But when we're willing to go, yay, feedback! How is this experience here for me? That's a higher thinking. How is this experience here for me? And now we can start to incorporate the feedback and move over here. So I did that, and I looked at, what am I creating? How am I responsible for this? And then this is a really interesting thing that can also be a foundational frame of thinking that changes your life. Every single human is always making the best feeling decision in the moment. And a lot of us have impoverished menus of choices to choose from. Right? If somebody doesn't have food and stealing is the way they get it, they're making the best feeling choice on their menu. If we're not equipped with like a full menu, you know how you go to some Chinese restaurants and it's like 20 pages of menu? We'd like to get to that in our life instead of having the one page with like 6 items, right? We want to have more and more choices. So a lot of what the work I do is helping people put new choices on their menu so that they can actually have more of the experiences that they desire to have. So if we don't have the choices available, we can't create the things we desire. So when I met Sebastian, I knew something was up right away because literally I got delivered to his front door. I knocked on his front door. I was going for a meditation ceremony. They said, come in. I opened the door. I saw him, and I lit up like the Times Square Christmas tree. I'm barely ever attracted to anybody for anything. So to have that experience, I was like, pay attention. Back on my attention. And as we started to create our relationship, I had to do some really scary things. I had to put new choices on my menu. Part of that was about having my eye on the prize. So we want to think about what's over here as our target. Right? And we've heard some of this in different ways before, right? What you focus on is what you get. But a lot of us are so focused on the triggers that come up, we take our eye off of the prize. I told Sebastian early on, like, my intention with you is to co-create amazing every day. Right? I knew what my intention was. I invited him into that. And that's how we started to do things. When this stuff would come up, I'd be shaking because my nervous system wants me to react and respond the way I have always reacted and responded. And I knew that if I did that, I was going to get more of what I'd had in the past, and I was done with that experience. So I would say, as I'm shaking, because I'm not letting my ego run my show, and I would say, I don't know what to do right now. Because in the past, I would have done X, and it would have gotten me Y result. So until I have new choices, I cannot go further in this conversation. Are you willing to press the pause button? And we will resume the conversation when I have new choices. He was like, okay. And that was really different for both of us. Both of us have come from experiences where our mothers displayed borderline personality patterns, lots of codependency in both of us. And so to have these conversations where we were owning the experience we wanted to create instead of people-pleasing each other was a huge shift. And sometimes I would have to take days to come up with these new choices. There'd be tears, I'd be processing stuff, and then it would come back and I'd say, okay, so here's an important thing about choice. One thing, there's no choice. Two is a dilemma. We have to have at least 3 choices before now we're in the world of choice. And if we can come up with at least 3 choices, we can usually come up with a whole bunch. So I would come back and I'd say, this is my list of choices. These are my top 3. I'm going to choose A. And we're going to see what the result is. Because everything I'm choosing is moving me in the direction of co-creating amazing with this person every day. And so I'd say, I'm going to try A. Are you ready? And we'd pick up the conversation. And the conversation was not reacting or responding to how I felt or my triggers. The way we would pick up the conversation is, what are we going to do in order to have this result? That is a very different way of creating a relationship than reacting and responding to every little thing, and you did this, and I did this, and you said this, and it made me feel this, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. All of that just keeps us stuck. When we want to be the creator of our life, we have to disengage and set down the shit triangle and rise up from how we feel. Rise up from the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors. Whoa. That was an interesting thing. What's the universe and the fields telling us now?
Say it louder.
Say it louder. We have to rise up within ourselves, right? Thank you. We, maybe she has to switch microphones. Hello? Hello, there we go. We have to be the ones to rise up within ourselves. To say, this is not the experience I'm willing to continue perpetuating in my life. I am the active creator in my life. The only way I can be this is to transcend the limitations that I have been living inside of, the prison I am contained inside of, and actually step into this. Because this is what I want my life to be. So I started to have this really incredible experience with Sebastian. Several months after we started dating, and we took it pretty damn slow, even though we were literally living together because it worked for us. We lived too far apart. I'd been traveling a lot. I'd been spending a lot of time here in Denver during 2017 and 2018 so I could be here in Mile High Church. I was really like, what is this thing? I was meditating in the chapel, the Road Chapel, when I was 15 during a teen lock, and we were overnight in the church, and I was laying under the benches in there meditating. And I got this download at 15 that ministry was my calling. And I ran the other way. So in 17 and 18, I was back here going, okay, I'm willing to look at this. What does this mean to me? What do you want me to do? So I was spending a lot of time here, about half the year here and half the year in California, going back and forth. And so my place was rented, and I was spending time with Sebastian. And we were just like, this works for us, because we were focused on this. It's not about what society says, it's about what works for us. I like to be in your presence. It's really easy to be in your presence. Can we just continue to spend this time together, knowing that every day we have new choices available to us? If either one of us gets to a point that, I don't know that I want to do this, it's okay. We can make a new choice and we can go our own ways. And 6 years later, that's how we still live our life. We ask each other almost daily, honey, will you spend your forever with me? Because we know today is the moment that we get to choose each other over and over. We are an active participant in constantly creating what we want. We focus on this. How are we doing this today? How are we doing that in our lives with each other, in our family with his 3 children, in the business we're evolving together, on a Dharma path side by side? And so this whole relationship has been evolving for us, and it's beautiful. And then I started to look at my business. Now in 2019, 2020, I was having $20,000 cash months in my business. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how this is happening. I don't know how to sustain this. And I totally freaked out. Anybody had that experience where you're like, things are going really good, and you're like, how do I keep doing this? Well, this whole journey has helped me come to this. My nose is now running again. I have a perpetually runny nose. Thank you. So this part of my journey was where I started to really confront this guy head on. And I was like, no, I'm done with this. Fear, an underlying massive amount of fear, was running this part of me continually. And it was affecting how I was showing up in business. Because in my family, there had been a lot of messiness around money. My parents yelled at each other until the day they got divorced when I was 8 or 9 years old, always about money. So now that I'm doing really, really well, and I've always done well with money, but I did it from fear. And I was like, I'm not going to live my life like this anymore. And when I started to set this guy down, that's when my life started to change. And the more I started to realign myself, because a lot of this was like trying to look at, what did I do wrong? What's not working for me? How do I do a better job? And all of that was literally feeding this guy my energy, my time, my attention, my resources. Let me tell you, I spent a lot of money on different programs trying to learn how to do money even better, to realize I'd been doing money pretty great all along. It was my fear that I really needed to look at. It was my fear I needed to disassociate from. It was my ego that I needed to put down. And then I started to really look at things differently about, wait, where am I putting my attention? What am I focusing on? And the more I started to follow a higher power in doing all of this, things started to shift. I started to keep myself aligned with this. My alignment, my target was, how does it get to be even simpler, even easier, and even more graceful, so that I want to show up in my business every day with a heart full of joy and love and peace and excitement to do what I'm here to do. How many of you have had the experience of like, you get a great idea and all of a sudden it starts to get hard and complicated and there's too many pieces and you're like, all of a sudden your motivation goes like this. People have that experience? Yeah, that's because this guy just took over. Anytime it starts to feel hard or heavy or complicated and you start to be uninspired, your ego has just taken over. So we have to have the right mind to think ourselves into higher places. So when we ask powerful questions, they're questions filled with power. This is one of the ways we get new choices. We ask powerful questions. And I'll tell you 2 secrets to how these questions get asked. It's not for our conscious mind to figure out, it's for our higher power to help us get the results, the answers. It's always a how question. Whose job is the how? Is the how your responsibility? No. Higher power, inspiration, infinite field is feeding us that. So the how is not our responsibility. It is our responsibility to ask the questions. How can I blank even more? That's the secret. How and even more, not just more, because listen to the difference when I ask you the question. How can I have a better relationship? Versus, how can I have an even better relationship? So the word even is what we call a presupposition. It presupposes or it assumes we're doing the next thing already. Versus if I only ask the question, how can I have a better relationship? There's something energetically in there that says I'm not doing a good enough job. But when I say even, it's saying I'm already doing a good job. How can I do an even better job? So asking these powerful questions helps orient us to our creator power. That's this whole thing. This one change is about orienting to our creator power. How can I create in my business so it's even easier? So it's even more simple. So it's even more graceful. So it's even more fluid. So it's even more joyful, even more exciting. Right? That's a whole different energetic set of questions than what do I need to do to fix this problem? And what do I have to do to, feel the energy of your business. The energy you feel in your business is going to be incredible feedback. And when you initiate that higher mind and start to ask these powerful questions, you get a whole new set of choices that takes you where you want to be. Does that sound like a pretty good deal? Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to give you a quick summary again. This feels hard and heavy. I call it gravity. Gravity starts to weigh you down. We don't want to show up. It gets hard. Think about it. Those times in your life where you felt so much anxiety or depression or a lot of heavy emotions, you literally feel weighed down. And how easy is it for you to do this in your life? Right? But when we initiate the higher thinking, it starts to help us lighten up. Quite literally, it helps us lighten up energetically. Right? So we want to ask these powerful questions that lead to an internal sensory experience of feeling light, feeling like we're floating, feeling like the joy's coming back into our heart, feeling like the heart is opening, the chest is expanding. We're like, oh, this is fun. Oh, I like this. Now there's one more thing I have to tell you that's a real key here. How many of you love the feeling of discomfort or tension? Anybody love the feeling of discomfort or tension?
We all do.
How many of you are good at sitting with that tension? Okay, I'm going to tell you one more secret. Tension is the creative force in the universe. This is a scientific thing. Tension is always seeking resolution. But the ego wants to resolve tension in support of, I'm not good enough. I don't matter. I'm playing small. I'm not worthy. That's the way the ego's trying to resolve the negative tension we feel from this guy or the ship triangle running us. When we do not react or respond to that, but instead focus on our target, on the life we desire to create and live, then we have that tension available for us and in our favor to actually move us in this direction. So think about it. What happens if you get a flat tire? How do you feel?
Deflated.
You feel deflated. That's really good. Right? But there's a tension that comes up inside of you, right? You're like, oh, I have to fix the problem. Well, this isn't necessarily a problem. This is just something that needs to have different steps taken to move you towards the desired outcome, which is what? To keep driving, a full tire, right? And so literally, we know the result is a fixed tire, a full tire to keep us going on our merry little way. But we're over here with a flat tire. So now there is a tension established between me and that desired result, that every step I take creates momentum towards the outcome. And choices are how we get there. So this is creative tension. We have to learn, we get to learn to sit in the tension of how we feel in relationship to our desired outcome, and to remember not to go here, but to keep our eye on the prize and go, oh, I got a lot of shit coming up right now. That shit triangle's trying to get me, but that is my eye on the prize. What's the next right step? I might know the thing out there, but how many of us want to know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 3A, step 3B, step 3C, all the way over here, right? Because we've grown up in a society that has conditioned us to think that way. When we step into our creator power, we literally have to let go of that to know that's my eye on the prize. And go, what's the next right step? How do I create a business that's even more simple and even more joyful and even more of service to the love and light of everybody? Oh, I got this idea, and I take this step. Or maybe the next 3 steps up here, and I'm like, ooh, thanks. Ooh, that was fun. Ooh, now I'm excited. And the creative tension starts to build inside of me in honor of that. But oh God, I just took this step, and that step was scary, and all this stuff's coming up again. You've probably had this experience. You've taken steps, and all this stuff comes up inside of you. And then you start reacting and responding to it, and oh my God, I'm stuck at step 3B. Anybody had this experience? This is how we keep going in life. We stop engaging with this guy. We go, thank you. You've been doing a great job keeping me safe, but I am safe. I am safe right here. Nobody's going to annihilate me. Nobody's going to kill me if I take step 3C. So I'm going to breathe through it. And literally, I have clients that come back to me as they work this process, and they're like, oh my God, I was talking to my partner, and I was like, don't go into the shit triangle like this, because it literally, we have to free up the energy that's been creating this. It is literally a psychosomatic experience inside of our body at times, especially if it is a well-entrained pattern. So we have to be willing to sit in that discomfort, sometimes to let the energy discharge. Like, I have had so many experiences where I am just like shaking because I'm breaking the ties, the energetic ties that have bonded me to this pattern. And then I'm like, okay, now I can breathe, and I'm safe. And I do a lot of NLP work. That's neuro-linguistic programming. I'm actually a trainer of NLP because of how much it changed my life. And so I work with people through this process so we can help upgrade them, help get them new choices. Especially, I work with a lot of people with trauma because I had a lot of trauma as a child. And when we have trauma conditioning, our critter or our ego is stronger. There's even scientific research about this. If you want to understand more about what's happening in the brain as it evolves, read The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Daniel Siegel. This is all of the information that shows when we actually help a child learn and support them with compassion and kindness, and they are given all of their developmental rights and milestones. They evolve a whole brain where the left brain and the right brain are consistently working together. Instead of us trying to get our right brain, our creative brain online. It's pretty amazing. So we have to think higher so that we can get out of this and get back in line with our target and take step 4 and step 5. And literally, it is the momentum. We want to always have momentum. We want to always be in tension with our intention, so that we move towards our end result. And the closer we get, here's another key. The closer we get over there, I don't want to get to that goal without having a new goal. How many of you have reached a goal and then life fizzles out? You're like, what's next? Because we need the next thing to keep us in that creative tension, to keep us staying in this alignment. Okay? Thank you. I'm going to stop now, but I want to ask for questions, clarifications, insights, or gems that you've received today.
For some reason, it's brought up so much emotion because I know what it's like to learn.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just going to have you repeat it back into the microphone.
I'm Joe Phillips, and I just was so emotionally taken by your conversation because I live in that left. I mean, it's always bringing up all those insecure feelings, and I can see that if your focus is there, you're never going to be able to move out of that.
Joe.
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your honesty, too, about your experience. Thank you. Other people want to share their insights, gems, or ask questions? I can be your microphone runner. I got one here. Okay.
What is your suggestion when you get stuck in the feelings part?
When you get stuck in the feelings part, is recognize you're stuck in the feelings part, right? Awareness changes everything.
I get that. What's the next step?
Breathe.
You got it.
Set down the shit triangle. Turn it into a three-dimensional tetrahedron. Come up to the PowerPoint and start asking these powerful questions. Asking powerful questions. Instead of what am I feeling? Instead of reacting and responding to it. Yes, our feelings are valid, and they often stop us from having what we want. So literally breathe and focus over here again and start asking, what's the next step? How do I move towards that with ease and grace? How do I continue to move towards this? What's the next tiniest little step that I can take towards this? Sometimes it might not necessarily be this, but just shifting our energy. One of the things I love to do the most when I'm feeling a lot of emotion is clean my house. I can do 20 minutes of house cleaning and then sit back down and look at this again and be like, oh, now I can sit back down. Right? It's a process that we all just get to evolve through, finding your way. So there's actually a lot of really great strategies because then we start to tap into neuroscience. So meditating is great, but taking a walk changes our neurophysiology and literally the neurochemicals that are being dumped into our system. If we stay seated and stay sitting in this, that is our own creation, and we are the only one creating our suffering. When we take a walk, especially outdoors, we connect to nature, we're breathing in the air, we're moving our body. When we move our body, new neurochemicals have to be signaled to be created inside of us. We are 100% in charge of our neurochemistry when we take responsibility for it. Right? So meditation's great. Physical movement is great. Dancing in the house is great. Stretching our bodies great. Anything like that. Orgasm, it's a great way. It totally changes the neurochemistry, getting dumped into our body. This is all stuff I also teach. I'm all about how do we live an ecstatic life? Well, part of how we live an ecstatic life is realizing we can get into ecstatic states all these ways. Meditation, exercise, play, orgasm, psychedelics. I do a lot of work with psychedelics. Singing, chanting, music, all of these things literally change the chemicals that are being put into our system. If you sit there and do nothing, you're giving all of your power away to whatever this is. So that was a great question. And tell me your name again.
Alexandria.
Alexandria, thank you. Was that helpful?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you.
We're about
Okay.
out of time.
Thank you all so much for your attention. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Melissa, thank you so much.
Woo, one more round of applause.
more about ego in my business when I was younger. How you're afraid to move forward and take steps. Your ego tells you, you can't do that. My wallet might be a little bit thicker today if I wouldn't let my ego be in control for my businesses. But we have a couple of new people here today. Key's one. Okay, we have time for 1 minute on your business, but I'll tell you he's at 7864 West Jewel Avenue. It's called the Lakeview Event Center.
Yes, I've been in this business for 12 years. Now I'm moving back to India for good. I've been here 54 years. So I decided was I born and raised in India, I better go back there. So I was wondering if anybody needs any kind of event, I'll be happy to work with you, give you good price and everything. I have 98% business with the Spanish-speaking people. I don't speak Spanish, only amigo, that's it. So it'd be nice to be here, and I'll be looking forward to come another 6 months. I've been here. So be a member and take help from you guys. Thank you, have a good day.
Yeah, is the event center going to stay open after that? Is it going to stay open after the 6 months?
Yeah.
Somebody else will be having.
Yeah,